Good afternoon, my dear students. In today's lesson, we are going to talk about evaluating story. So, we're going to talk about evaluating story. So, let's start from the elements of the short story. So, the short story is the plot, it's the beginning, so setting, characters, conflicts, and point of view of the theme. It's the main points. Setting, what is the historic time, place, social background of the story? Does the setting influence the plot of the characters? Would it make any difference if the story of certain scenes were set elsewhere? Is there any use of symbolisms in the setting? What are the most striking scenes? How is the setting presented? How much time does the action cover? How does the author treat gaps in time? So, let's talk about the atmosphere. Atmosphere is a feeling or mood created by a writer. For example, fear in a ghost story, tension in a mystery story, prevailing tone of place or situation. Question to ask: what kind of atmosphere does the writer create and how does he do it? So, what is a conflict? Conflict, all stories are built on conflict. It provides the central source of tension and the drama that makes stories interesting to read. Types of conflict: man vs man, man vs society, man vs nature, man vs self, man vs fate, man vs technology. So, man vs man involves conflict between people, such as family conflict, trouble with the body, difficulties in romance, and etc. Man vs society involves conflict between an individual and a larger group, such as the outsider in a strange culture, a poor character struggle to make it in the business world, etc. Man vs nature involves conflict between an individual and the natural world, such as fighting a powerful hurricane, surviving a plane crash in the desert, and etc. Man vs self involves characters, psychological. Man vs self involves character psychological conflicts with themselves, such as overcoming drug habit or alcoholism, grieving over the loss of a loved one. Then man vs fate involves conflict with what seems to be a controllable problem, such as destiny. Man vs technology involves conflict with the forces of man-made technology, such as the robots.
Pay attention.
So, conflict continued. Yes, external conflict, it is a struggle between a character and an outside force. And which types of conflict are external? Internal conflict, a struggle that takes place in a character's mind. Which types of conflict are internal? So, what is the plot? What is plot? The sequence of events, or basically what happens in the story. So you can see the exposition, it's the beginning of the story, the rising action, and the climax. It is a very interesting point of the story, falling action, and the resolution. So, stages of a plot: introduction of characters, exposition, the situation, initial conflict, complication, rising action, heightened anticipation for the reader, and the climax, and the falling action, the conclusion, resolution, denouement. Then, questions to ask about plot: give a brief synopsis of the story. Is the plot logical and believable? Is there a well-defined beginning, middle, and end? Then, what is there a climax or turning point? Is curiosity aroused? Does it also make use of dilemmas, irony, foreshadowing, and flashbacks? Then, what is setting? The setting of a story serves different functions in the action and the emotional effect it has on the reader. In some stories, the setting might almost be considered a character itself. Setting works in many important ways in the short story, provides a backdrop for the action and the mood, and establishes atmosphere, shapes character and action, reflects character psychology. So, what is a character? Character is perhaps the most important of all elements of the short story. Almost invariable, it is the people in stories that interest us most. So, what kind of techniques of characterization you can see? Direct characterization. The author tells the reader information about the characters directly. Indirect characterization, it also shows the character in action and lets the readers make their own interpretations. Author's characterization tools: the character's name, physical appearance, character's dress, occupation, home and the surroundings, habits and actions, what does the character say or think about him or her. Then, and the Lord. Types of characters. Protagonist, the main character, typical the good guy. So let's continue. Protagonist, the main character, typically the good guy, but not always. So let's continue. Antagonist, the character or force in conflict. So, what is the point of view, the perspective from which a story is told? Ask yourself who is telling the story. There are several different points of view.
Son of a bee sting! She's turning the entire office against us!
Limited points of view. First person, the character narrates his or her own experience directly. And the third person, the author tells the story from the point of just one character. So, who tells the story and how she or he tells it are critical issues that determine the interpretation of the story. The teller of the story is the narrator, not to be confused with the author. The narrator could be either objective, detached, or subjective. So this point of view is called third-person omniscient. If the author is outside the story and represents the thoughts of all the characters involved as an objective observer. So, for example, when Jane saw Bill jogging past her house, her heart skipped a beat. When Bill saw Jane in the hallway at school, he fought hard to catch his breath. No doubt about it, it was laughter.
I'm an excellent driver.
The narrator reads the author. If the narrator is telling the story, readers must be careful not to confuse the narrator's attitude with the author's. Often authors create a character to act as the narrator who expresses far different attitudes than those they hold for themselves. The unreliable narrator. Sometimes also create a narrator who gives the reader clues that he or she is not to be trusted as a reliable source of information. It then becomes the reader's job to decide the real truth beneath the unreliable narrator's lies or distortions. What is a theme? Theme is novel or short story, poem, central message, or insight into life, a universal truth. It is not what is the story about, it is what the work means.
Hey, shake and bake, Al!
Flashback and the foreshadowing. Flashback is an interruption in the present action of a story to tell about something that happened in the past, a jump back in time. So, foreshadowing is when the author gives clues or hints about what might happen later on a story.
Get in my belly!
What is figurative language? Figurative language is a tool that an author uses to help the readers visualize what is happening in a story or poem. Figurative language is meant to be interpreted imaginatively, not literally.
Okay, girls.
Types of figurative language. Simile, a figure of speech that compares two dissimilar things by using the key words like or as. Metaphor, a figure of speech that compares two unlike things, describing one as if it were the other. Personification, a figure of speech in which human qualities are given to a non-human subject.
Bye-bye. I'm sorry, what?
Figurative language can hyperbole, an exaggerated statement or statement. It is figure of speech that is not to be taken literally. Then, symbolism. Symbols are animals, elements, things, places, or colors whereas you present other things. What might these things symbolize? Lamp, fox, snake, purple, black, red, sunset, spring, winter, thunderstorm.
You're an adult.
Third, tone and the mood. Tone is author's attitude, feeling about the subject of his or her writing. It is the way a writer uses words, connotations, creates images, chooses details, uses language and structures sentences to present a certain attitude or feeling to the reader about his or her writing topic. Tone can be positive, negative, or neutral. Tone and the mood. Mood is the overall feeling, light, happy, dark, or mysterious, for example, created by an author's work.
God
Mood is the
put
way
that rock there for a
the
purpose
text
and
makes the reader feel. So, questions to ask about diction. What highly connotative words does the writer choose? Then other questions. The characters can also be symbolic, satirical, stock, realistic, exaggerated. So, questions to ask about characters. Does every character have a function? Are any minor characters foils or are they interesting in themselves? So, a general scheme of analysis, optional information about the author, about the book, about the historical and the cultural context, literary trend, etc. General text interpretations, the title, informative, evaluative, or constructive. The theme, the word of a story instruct, one theme, multiple theme story, basic and the by themes. The idea, moral, common truths, implicit ideas. Text analysis as such, general, psychological, social, historical, adventure, science fiction, detective, gothic fiction and fantasy, fairy tale and etc. Narrative composition forms, narration, proper description and the dialogue, dynamic description, interlinear. So plot, conflict and the plot structure. For conflict, single and the multiple, external, internal, physical, mental, man against man, man against himself, man against society. Plot structure patterns, open and closed. So, characters and the character drawing. Character presentation will be direct and indirect. Direct author's presentation or direct self-disclosure. Indirect will be shown in action. General tone of the text. Emotional will be unemotional, calm, satirical, sarcastic, ironic, humorous, elevated, pathetic, and etc. Varying with the past of the text of the same through the whole text. Syntactical text pattern, maybe lexical text pattern, and the phonographical graphical text pattern. The choice of words, neutral, colloquial, or bookish vocabulary. So, then the conclusion will be the prevailing text formation principle, prevalence ideas, most interesting and the more important peculiarities of the author's style, the way the author conveys his message to the reader. So thank you very much guys for your attention, and at home you must write down all these main parts to your notebooks and the so retelling and